We are paying tribute tonight to former Governor Hugh Carey, who passed away yesterday at the age of 92. He passed away at his vacation home surrounded by family, a reminder that throughout his political career he was also a devoted family man. Carey had 14 children, and he brought all of them, well, most of them rather, with him as he campaigned for governor in a Winnebago, a strategy replicated last year by Andrew Cuomo, and then he moved his family into the governor's mansion. Joining me now to talk more about Carey's life outside of office and his public display is his daughter, Nancy Carey Cassidy. Thank you very much, Nancy, for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Liz.
And I just want to start out by saying I'm sorry for your loss, and New Yorkers are remembering your father really fondly, and the outpouring, I think, must be, it's a tribute to him, obviously, but I hope you're deriving some comfort from it.
It is a tribute to him, and it's certainly not surprising to us to see the outpouring, because during his entire life, we would be stopped by people to comment on something he was working on or something that he was doing, and what a proud children we should be. And we always were. We still are very proud children. We're very proud of him, very proud of his accomplishments. Of course, we're sad that we've lost him, but we're very happy that he's at peace, knowing his faith and knowing that that's ultimately what his goal in life would be to go to heaven.
Do you, you know, now a lot of people are remembering his wit and his sense of humor. I'm just sorry I never actually got to meet him. I have read a great deal about him. Is that what you remember about him too? Was he funny as a father?
He was funny as a father. He was incredibly intelligent, so he could portray something to you that you thought he was being completely serious about and challenging you, and what he really wanted to know is how much did you know, because ultimately he knew more than we did every single time. But he would set up sort of a little cat and mouse exchange, and what he was doing, he was educating us. But he had a charming personality. He loved life. He loved to be with people. He loved to sing. He loved to celebrate. So yeah, he was very funny. He was very entertaining.
Do you think that deadpan wit and that sort of dry sense of humor that he sometimes displayed contributed to him being misunderstood at times?
I think if you misunderstood his intellect, then you misunderstood him. Where really, times he was 3 or 4 thoughts ahead of other people, and he'd come out with a statement and they'd think that that was crazy, but really what he was doing is jumping across the chessboard. He was a few moves ahead of people many times.
So what was it like to be, actually, you and I were talking just before this segment, and he had a very full life. 92 is pretty far up there, and he was actually very lively and engaged right up until the end, which is also unusual and a blessing for a lot of people. Hope for that. I personally do. He also was had a lot of tragedy in his life, and he ran for governor the year that your mom had passed, and that was something that she really wanted for him.
She did want that for him. You know, throughout his life, you know, as a young boy, he lived through the Depression. He watched his father almost lose his business, but his father refused to lose the business, refused to declare bankruptcy, and worked through it. So at every step of his life as he went through, he was learning and growing. He learned enormous courage from my mother as she was battling cancer and still trying to take care of her 12 remaining children. They lost together 2 of my brothers in 1969 in a car accident. They forged together through that, then discovered that she had cancer, and then when they discovered the cancer had returned, they sat down together and made a plan. And the plan was that he was going to run for governor whether she survived or not. And she endorsed that. She let it be known to the people that he was going to be working with that she was fully in favor of it. So the decision was made by them together. Well, it might seem, you know, your wife just passed away and you're announcing you're running for governor. He had her full support. And I'm sure that she was up in heaven pushing him along, and not sure she wanted all the kids in the Winnebago quite all summer long. And I have to say, the older brothers managed to get a rental car and some hotel rooms on a few of the trips. But there's a few stories about that Winnebago trip that someday we'll have to share with people.
Yeah.
But the fun part is that we went to 61 of the 62 counties in New York State. He managed to visit all 62. When the results came in, he won 61 counties of the 62. And the one he didn't win was the one that the kids didn't visit. So to the end, we teased him that we could have pulled that county out for him if he really needed us.
Do you remember, and then subsequently seven, right, of the kids moved in with him to the governor's mansion. It was an unusual arrangement, obviously, because your mom wasn't with you, and right. He was governor. So you're living in this mansion. He's governor of the state of New York, the most powerful guy in New York. What was that like?
I think they probably could have invented reality TV shows back then and just put a camera in the first floor of the mansion. You wouldn't need too many writers. My sister actually started her first year of college during the campaign. So when we moved in, I was the oldest living at home with my one younger sister and my 4 youngest brothers. My father did do his best to try and have dinners at the mansion. He actually used the mansion to bring members of the legislature, to bring members of his staff and his cabinet there to sort of remove themselves from the distractions at the Capitol. And it was a way for him to also spend time for a few minutes interacting with the children. I was 17, so I sort of, was able to take care of myself. I had mentioned to someone that my parents instituted what they called the buddy system.
Yeah, I read that.
When we were growing up. And it truly was. My eldest sister was my buddy, and so she would always check up on me, and then one of my younger brothers was my buddy, so I would check up on him. So it wouldn't fall to one person's responsibility to take care of all the kids. And when you've been through changes like losing your mother and we moved from Virginia to Brooklyn temporarily to Albany, we sort of forged our own way and became very close. To this day, my family spends Thanksgiving and Christmas together, not just siblings, our spouses, our children, the grandchildren. We make a point of touching in with each other on a regular basis. We have family sayings that we say to each other that are really based in faith, but you wouldn't know that unless you're a member of our family. And our faith keeps us very strong. We know that our Father has now joined our mother in heaven, and he's reuniting with his sons and his brothers and his parents, and that it's a blessing day for him.
He is being remembered most in terms of all of these news stories as the man who saved New York for the fiscal crisis in the 1970s. But he's actually had accomplished a lot of other things that were actually pretty liberal, if you will, and progressive. What do you remember him most for in terms of policy, and what do you think he was most proud of?
I think he was most proud of when he was championing for people, whether it was starting he was on the Education Committee in Congress, and he was the catalyst to really push Head Start to get going. He really fought for, as you know, the Willowbrook degree. Mm-hmm. He loved to be able to work things that were going to have impacts on the greatest number of people. The Albany Times-Union had a wonderful headline, I think, where it said, the man who loved New York. Yeah. And that was very true. He did love New York. You mentioned he did not make the last State of the State. He thought about it. He was still doing rehab, but he certainly watched every minute of it on television. He certainly watched everything that was going on in the legislature. And to him, not to see politics come out in favor of the people was probably his greatest disappointment.
Well, then maybe it's best that he is not going to be with us to see what's going on in Washington these days, because it's certainly not too great for the people, I don't think. I do want to ask you, unfortunately we're almost out of time, but I want to ask you, your family supported Andrew Cuomo.
That's correct.
When he ran for governor last year, he invoked the memory of your father and his fight during the 1970s to try and bring his successful fight to try and bring all sorts of disparate people, labor and politicians and businessmen together to save New York City, and said basically that everybody needed to recreate that going forward because New York had such a fiscal crisis, another fiscal crisis at the state level. He's now being championed, Governor Cuomo, as the man to carry on Hugh Carey's legacy, his political legacy. Do you believe that he'll be able to do that?
I think if he keeps doing what he's doing, yes. I think his only challenge is, will the people on the other side listen and understand that they have to come to the table and change? The same way people came to the table back in the 70s. The people in Washington have to listen. You know, bipartisanship is not going to affect change that's positive for our country. It just isn't. Hugh Carey was a registered Democrat, but he was a fiscal conservative. He was a social liberal. He knew how to work across the aisle, no matter who was on the other side of the table. And he did that because he respected why the person was there. And he asked that that person respect why he was there. And I think that he taught us all a lesson that you can have disagreements, but you can then come together for the greater good, which is in government, the greater good is for the people.
Well, Nancy Carey Cassidy, I'm going to let you go because I know that is a busy time. And again, we're very sorry for your loss, and I'm very pleased that you were able to make some time for us and share some memories about your dad. Thanks so much.
And thank you for the tribute that I know you're going to be putting on about him. And my family is very grateful to everyone for the outpouring of support and love that we've been receiving over the last day and days to come.
It's our pleasure.